All right. Well, thanks for climbing back into the Buzzbubble. It's good to see you. It was almost 3 years ago. We sat on the porch of the Fearless Cottage, and
I feel like I've been on the show a lot. Am I like been on the most of anyone?
I think you have.
All right.
Yes,
that's good.
Absolutely. I called you about a year and a half ago. I don't know if there's enough going on yet. Let's get to.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was plenty going on, but you had said same time next year, but it's 3 years later. And a lot has happened. So just got to start somewhere. So why don't we start with Made? That's kind of the in the forefront right now.
Yeah.
How'd Made come about, and you know, where's it going?
Dave Schiff, who's the creative director and founder, and Scott Prindle and John Kieselhorst. I think they were sort of like riffing on things to do, and Dave and I are best friends, and we would meet for coffee in the morning sometime, and he would just, you know, I'm thinking about this, or it's an app agency, or we're going to do a, you know, event agency, or like, you know, what do you think's smart? And you know, we'd go through all his list of ideas, and then at the end of breakfast one time, he's just like, you know what I'd really like to do? I'd like to do an agency where you just worked on things that were made in America. And I was like, that's what you should do. You should always do what you really would like to do.
Right.
So that might be the thing. He's like, but that's stupid, you know? And
but what did you say? I thought it was, actually I saw what it was. I was like, oh, that's got to be your brainchild.
No, but I mean, it was in the zeitgeist, and I did encourage him and said it is not a bad idea. You know, sacrifice has to be part of anything, I think. You know, what you do work on and what you don't work on, and, you know, focus. So to me, it seemed like something that was going to be probably a, you know, good 10-year trend, where I think we were kind of waking up to, well, we sent a little bit too many things offshore. There's a connection between R&D and manufacturing that we don't want to lose. You know, there's a drain of brain power as well as labor. And so, you know, to me it felt like I just kept hearing the idea in culture. I was like, this is right. It's in the zeitgeist, and you know, figure it out. So, you know, they did. I'm an investor just because I think it's a neat idea and it matches my values.
Right.
And I'm an advisor because I've, you know, done some agency stuff in the past, so I can kind of help guide them with that. And it's great. It's great fun.
I didn't realize until I saw you in New York City that you said Made was X% retail, X% agency, and you kind of described it more as an agency concept first. Mm-hmm. Am I the only one that, first sees it and thinks it's kind of this collaborative of finding and marketing great brands that are made in America and channeling them through and being the marketing machine?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some confusion around it, because I think the store is to, I think, for them to put their money where their mouth is and kind of participate in actually supporting businesses that are making things here. But it isn't a direct relationship between what's happening on the store and what's happening as an agency. So that's not like the clients move through the store or anything like that at all. In fact, I don't think there's any examples of that.
Oh, okay. So explain to me the store then.
The store is just it's a store of made in America stuff.
And you guys curate and
curate things that that are interesting and cool. And
is that part of the pitch that we saw in New York City that they were pitching?
They were pitching for the store. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a very cool event. I think I have some video from that. We'll drop it in.
Drop it in, and it's all going to make sense. The main thing, Made starts also with a philosophy about, marketing being something that is more about what you make than just about what you say. So a lot of their clients, they're really, deeply involved in what's happening digitally, because in the digital space, you can create a lot of value for your client. So something like Pizza Tracker, you're creating a ton of value that was locked up in the system that nobody really saw. And so some of their clients, they build the entire storefront, right? There's a, what's the name of it? I'll have to come back to it.
Building the storefront?
No, just the client. I'm trying to, Easel.
Okay.
Easel is like if you want to get an image put on canvas, you would go to easel.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, they built that, basically they built the company. So that's the kind of stuff that I think Made really likes to do. They're also doing traditional advertising for Stonyfield and Seventh Generation and things like that. But I think what they really like is when you get in and actually tweak the consumer offering.
Okay,
That's
so they're part of that.
So the Made philosophy is about making. And then the other part of the Made philosophy is that, hey, we want to support things that create jobs.
Right.
Because that's where they get really fired up. They don't have to go to work and fake any sort of passion. The passion's really there because everything they work on is aligned with their values. And so that's kind of how it all comes together.
Yeah, it seems to come together and so aligned with your values, which is a good segue into the Million Jobs video and how'd that come about and put you back on Ad Age front page for a while.
It did?
Well, the digital Ad Age, yeah. It was
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you don't pay any attention anymore. Good for you.
Yeah. I don't have Google alerts or any of that stuff. That stuff will make you crazy. Do you have that?
No, I remember.
Off.
You know, so
anyone out, you don't have Google alerts on yourself,
5 years
your friends, your company.
Alex gets on Twitter. I'm following Alex, and like 2 months later, you're like, I'm out. I feel like I got to respond too much. It was like too much information.
Oh, on Twitter, yeah.
And here's my email address if you want to talk to me. Just email me. So I imagine you must have been, you know, during all the Fast Company years and just Google everything Alex Bogusky. And
oh, it's just so like if you
it's like producing a play and watching the critics.
My rule on press is, if you're going to read the good press, you got to read the bad press. So I don't want to read any of it. It seems fair. I'm just,
That's fair, right.
Yeah.
So
the other night, my wife was like
field.
surfing, you know, she was looking for stuff on the American Made video. And I'm like, stop, you know, because I was there. And she's like, well, let me just, and then she started to find things, you know, and it's like, whatever, somebody who's upset with me for some reason. I'm like, see what you did.
You've uncovered something.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
So I didn't know that I was back in.
Yeah. So it was kind of
ad press.
Right there.
But that was a fun project, and that was just really my wife and I as a little side project. We said
it's so aligned with what Made stands for. And
totally, but it's not a Made project. They helped me with it, but it was really, you know, I do think it's important to move some manufacturing back, and I also think that when I'm shopping with shopping with your values is important. Being aware of how you're purchasing and what you're purchasing. Made in America is such a shortcut, and people, you know, they're trying to create new apps, they're trying to create new websites so that you know whether anyone's been exploited, you know, are these diamonds okay, is this coffee okay, etc. And there is this label, and it's sewn and it's stamped on just about everything, and if you find it, you know there were no kids in factories. You know, you know that it was not shipped around the world 3 times. And so so the carbon footprint's smaller.
Right.
You know that things weren't just dumped into rivers because we're pretty much, you know, went through that phase here. And so we know how to manufacture things cleanly. So a lot of what you care about probably can be answered. And so often people look at it as just a union thing or a protectionist
it's reminiscent
thing.
of the union label thing, which was something different, but it was...
But it's not, to me, it's not about protectionist. It's not about, you know, an absolute. I'm not trying to get everything made here.
Right.
It's just one way, and a really effective way, if you care about those things.
Just to make it easy.
I don't want a $5 T-shirt if it means someone has to be exploited, right? So,
if those are your values, you've made it easy for people to do the right thing.
And what I sometimes say to people too is, look, if you're not going to look for Made in America, do something so that your purchases are more aware. So if you're going to buy something, find out a little bit something about it. Right.
Who's doing that? You know, and this is a few years back. I don't know if Good Guide is still rocking
around. Yeah.
Who's one of the leaders in the kind of more staples of life? You know, you know, in the food world, in the
Environmental Working Group is a great site. Still a great site.
Okay.
They partner with a lot of companies and with a lot of businesses and with a lot of nonprofits now. So they've kind of expanded what they do. I think Good Guide is, still a really, important place to check out. And I don't know beyond that. I mean, there've been some that have come and gone, and some of them were more about how people feel about you, which I was not that crazy about.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I liked what Good Guide was about. It just gave you the facts.
It was pretty nuts and bolts.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How was it made? Who made it? What do they dump? What do they don't dump?
Yeah.
Are they running solar?
Yeah.
So staying in theme, conscious consumer bill of rights, kind of similar themed.
Wait, we should finish with the video though. I don't feel like we finished with the American-made video.
Okay.
Like what happened there?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I just don't feel like we finished. I started to talk about that, but then we're talking about other things. But the video to me.
Oh yeah, the Million Jobs.
Yeah, the Million Jobs video. What I like about Buying American is very different than what other people see in Buying American. I kind of think I have hippie values, right? And those hippie values are what I see in it. And I think when we decided that we were going to outsource, a lot of production, we didn't realize the cost that was going to be included in some of those hippie values. We were going to have to try to police factories all the way around the world, right? And we haven't proven that we can do that very well. I mean, you can go back to the problems with Nike, which, is in part what created Good Guide eventually, and you just see the same things happen over and over and over. So we're obviously not very good at policing factories.
Right. Well, there's values in
we should
bottom line and the things that dictate how we do what we do.
It's just difficult. It's a long distance relationship. We should not stop trying. And it should still be important to people. And I think if you're going to buy something that's got in the tag it says Bangladesh, try to find another label that can make you feel better about that purchase. Right.
I sat down to think about that one time, and the first guy in a corporation that said, I'm trying to, I try and play devil's advocate. Who's on the other side of what might have happened? So. Did someone sit down and say, I need to make things cheaper, and you know what, there's a country over there with some people that are, so poor that maybe I can bring them some life that's better.
It doesn't happen. No, I don't think it happened like, no. But I think that there's some truth, there's a lot of truth to, look,
it can happen that way, right?
All jobs are empowering, right? There's some really bad jobs, but in general, that's why I don't like to think of this in absolutes. It's not that we should pull everything we make back here and we should have all the jobs here. There are jobs that obviously you want spread out all over the world. But what generally happens is there's a cheap labor force somewhere, and it's identified as a cheap labor force, and labor is considered a commodity. I'm not sure that's the way we should think of labor, but that is how we think of labor. And so the businesses just sort of migrate to that space, right? And so the factories don't necessarily get put there by first world corporations, Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth. And I don't think it's bad, and I don't think that we should stop working on bringing those conditions into a place that we decided was important for us. Right. I think it's wrong when we decide it's not important for them. That it's okay if I can get something cheap, I'm okay with exploiting other people. Right. And people, I think in general, just don't think about it that much. But if you took someone and you said, okay, come with me, we're leaving the big box retail now, and we're flying magically to the place where this product that these $2 flip-flops that you're excited about and they're on sale for $1, we're going to fly and you're going to see how they're made, and then we're going to talk about whether you're still comfortable with $2, right? Or whether you'd rather spend more and then also try to help, bring up those working conditions. I think that's what would happen. Right. But because that doesn't happen real time, there's a big enough disconnect that you can just go about your life and not bother to really participate with it. And we're all super busy, and there's too much to do for everybody.
It's convenient. We ignore it, and it's convenient.
It's convenient to ignore it as well. Yeah.
You can. I think you can definitely use the model here. Though, look here first. Tony Hsieh, when he wanted to put a call center together for Zappos, he looked around the States and he found Vegas, and he said there's a big population of people who could do this, and I could also build a community around that.
Yeah.
And he's done that. He's brought Zappos into downtown.
Yeah.
You know, and he's trying to build that up. And
Well, the Motorola phone, the one that's made in America, are you aware of it?
no.
God, let's do a commercial for Motorola right here. Anyway, this is it.
You know, there's
very
a lot
nice.
of advertising in New York City with that.
You've seen it?
Yeah, all over the place. I
So
guess I haven't
there's a news story in USA Today about the phone and the factory. It's made in Texas, largely made in Texas, and assembled in Texas, and you know, a lot of jobs. But the video is pretty cool on USA Today, and it basically starts with, you know, people said it's impossible. People said these kind of jobs would never come back. People said, you know, and that's what I see a lot of the comments to the video that I make. A lot of them are like that, you
Right.
know. And I was in that camp. I was you know, as a young man, I was sold the notion that we were going to be an idea economy. We would think of things here, and other people would make those things. I'm in. I'm an idea guy. This is going to be awesome, right? Like there's no downside for me in that.
Right.
But then, you know, as it happens, and you get 20 years into it, and the manufacturing jobs disappear, and they're replaced with jobs in fast food, you know, that don't pay nearly as much, that don't
Right.
allow you to support families, and don't really give you the sense of pride that maybe you had in those other jobs. And you have a school system that is not turning out the top graduates in math and science and everything else globally. I mean, we're not even close. So the notion that we're going to be the thinker-uppers as an entire nation, and we're all just going to have those jobs,
Elitist of us to.
it's just not reality. The reality is we need different kinds of jobs. And you know, so 20 years later, the theory confronts the reality, and I think you make adjustments. Again, it's not any absolute. It's just what would make the most sense. As you work to bring conditions up in other countries, guess what happens? You know, you get price parity in labor. So already in China, there's not the big discount in labor.
Oh,
As
right.
you move into move into other
progresses
countries, and they progress, and activists go there and say, these are not safe conditions, these are not fair conditions, these are not fair wages, then the price advantage disappears. So to me, that's kind of means that a lot of it is a social issue, where if you decide that certain people should be making things for you for less and living in a condition that you don't think is all right for your country, socially, I think you've got to maybe revisit that. And I think that's part of what's happening.
Do you think that was a lot, and the only reason I say that is because do you
I said
think
a lot of stuff, you mean?
It's complicated for people
it's
to get it.
complicated, yeah.
You know, talk about going back to
Well, and I'm not an
advertising.
economist.
How
I'm
do
an ad
we-
guy. I don't know
That's what I'm
anything.
tapping into here.
Yeah.
So you got all of this, and it's complicated, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
How do we distill it down so we really can make the change and help people get the light bulb? And you know,
For me, it's just buy. You know,
Made's
understand
great.
what you're buying.
Yeah.
You know, decide for yourself what matters to you, and then buy in a way. There's plenty of tools out there, and if that's too much work, then don't do it, and that's okay.
Right. Right.
I mean,
you can't, you know, America, we got to be number one, and then buy carelessly.
Or you can't be upset about horrible things that happen in unsafe factories, and then buy carelessly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, either way, there's work to be done, right? And we're so lucky, and we have so much, and we shouldn't take the attitude that it's just, you know, a God-given right. I think we should take the attitude that we have all this, and it's a responsibility to think about how we got it.
Most of us had it given to us. Some, you know, we're several generations into having.
Mm. No, there was a...
We've worked...
Well, we also expect things to be really cheap. We've been taught to expect things to be cheap. We've also been taught to expect things to be disposable. Both of those things had to be taught, and it took a generation. My grandfather, you know, or your grandfather, if he popped up into the world today, he would just be like, "This is crazy," right?
Yeah.
Like, everything's shit, you know, and nothing lasts.
Nothing
you know?
lasts. Yeah.
And it's like, how could it be? And how could it be so cheap? You know, it's like, you know, when I died, a T-shirt was $5. Why is it still $5?
Well, here's a great example. You have a refrigerator. Everybody has that extra refrigerator. I have my grandfather's refrigerator in my basement.
Oh, you do?
You know, it's one of those. It's like that one with the click.
Yeah.
You know, and it runs great. You know how many refrigerators I've had since that?
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They last 3-4 years. I mean, yeah, things are not made the way they used to.
No.
They're made to just, because we get tired of them too. You know, we don't want the same refrigerator in our kitchen for 12 years.
Well, I don't know why. I don't know. It's part of it is you don't want it because it's not very good. Like, it's really not designed, it's not designed to last.
Right.
And so there are things that you can buy that are designed to last. And when you do, you have kind of a different relationship with them. And that's nice too. But most people are not that familiar with that. I think it's catching back on now.
Yeah.
Quality.
Quality.
Catching
Made in
on.
America. Catching on. There's your line. Conscious consumer bill of rights. Good.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's a good segue to empower the consumer to know, right? Isn't that a part of what we were talking about? Just know what you're buying and love the concept. And
Feels like I did it so long ago.
yeah.
It feels like a long time ago. Right now.
Well,
Yeah.
it was kind of right after your exit.
It's got to be like 2.5 years ago.
You know, some say it was from a feeling of reparations of agencies.
Look at what I've done. Now I have to fix.
Agencies, not you. Your stuff, and this is unbiased for me, came from a place of truth. Agencies
Sometimes
in general.
try to. Do your
You know,
best.
we were trying to, buy your stuff. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Give me a minute. I'll think it up. We'll get a lot of people in a room, and that's the process. We'll get a lot of people in a room, and we'll figure out how to convince you.
Sure.
So let's now empower the consumer.
Well, for me, it was more that the consumer just suddenly had the opportunity to be empowered in the process, and I still worry that they're going to miss it. I don't know how long it's going to last. You know, it's a limited time offer where you as a consumer can demand to know from companies what is going on with my stuff. Where did it come from?
You think it's a blip? You don't think it's a trend?
Well, if the internet stays free, that's the big if. If the internet stays free, there's a lot of forces at play that are going to create a different internet. That is more controlled by companies than it is by individuals, and so that's where it's a limited time offer. If the internet doesn't stay free, then I don't think you would see the same kinds of things. You won't see the same things.
That's an interesting statement. Well, go ahead now. Come back to that because actually,
no, it's just it's a big. To me, that's a big concern, and it was one of the reasons why I pursued this idea of the Consumer Bill of Rights and some revisions to the Bill of Rights, because all over the place you see the Bill of Rights, or Kennedy's Bill of Rights. It's violated. You know, the FDA's charter is for people to know what's in their food. You know?
Right.
GMOs are not labeled, so you can get into the equivalency argument that they're the same. If they're the same, how come you're allowed to patent them? You know?
Yeah.
The patent office doesn't really allow you to patent things that already exist in general. It's like, if you walked in there and tried to patent this, they probably would not let you.
No, probably not.
No. So it's obviously different and yet not labeled. So that's but Kennedy couldn't have foreseen Kennedy and the people that helped him with the original, Consumer Bill of Rights. I don't think he could have foreseen some of the, changes in the landscape, especially around technology.
Yeah, and I just want to jump back to that concept of if the internet stays free. It made me think how dollars do really affect what we see, So you mean more from what we see, or access? I don't know. You weren't talking about getting access. You're talking about the content that comes to us.
The internet's different in China.
That's the first thing I thought of, and we always think, well, that's not us, but we're someone's controlling what we see. So
yeah, and if you take the time and you go into the internet through AOL, then go through the internet through Yahoo,
right?
Then go through the internet through Google, then go through Apple. You will have a different experience in each one. And if you go into the internet through Google, you hardly know that Yahoo exists.
Right.
Go in through Yahoo, and there's all this content that's got millions of views and stuff, and you're like, what?
What is this?
I've never seen this world.
I haven't thought about
so
this
it's
in
walled
so long.
off in all sorts of places that you just, how would you know? Because it's such a,
I
like if
accepted it.
someone walled off our solar system, how would you know? It's so big that you can't tell.
I remember, that's funny, I hadn't thought about this in so long. I remember when Yahoo started they bought Overture, who had the first pay per positioning for search engines. And I'm like, oh, Yahoo, I want what I want. I don't want what somebody paid for. That's our whole model now.
Right.
At Google, there's organic, but Google controls the organic algorithms, so that's how things are listed in the search engine. So that is an interesting statement, and it's not a free world unless we really try and experiment how we access it.
And you got to just, you got to stay involved. I mean, there are threats to it all the time, and I think part of the Consumer Bill of Rights in general is like, look, politics has been hacked, right? Money is in politics. Corporations are in politics. I'm not anti-corporation. I mean, I love them. But the fact that they're in government isn't good for me or anybody else that works in a corporation. I just don't think it's a good thing, right? So, corporations and corporate money are in government. And so if you want to shape the world based on your values, whatever those are, then going to the polls is only half your job. You're going to have to be really aware as a consumer. Because as a consumer, you have great leverage over corporations. They're dying to know what you want to spend your money on. They're dying to know what your values are. They're dying to know what's an emotional trigger for you.
Right.
As a voter, stiff arm, it's like, they don't want,
keep your distance.
So it's a different, at some point, I think the political system will repair itself and morph again. But right now, I think taking your vote and giving it to somebody with the hopes that they're going to go out into the world and do your bidding, it's a joke. It is not going to happen. And you're giving up your power if that's all you do.
Right.
Yeah. If AT&T gave your Democratic candidate $110 million and he gave your Republican candidate $140 million or 100, whatever, the difference is very slim.
Yeah.
Both candidates have been bought, sometimes by different sets of corporations, but often just the same with just different amounts.
Funded by corporate America.
And I love corporations. They're awesome. No, I mean, we don't have a better system than capitalism for lifting people out of poverty,
right,
and for helping people like achieve personal growth. It's amazing, but it's not. It's right now. There's some things about how it's moved into politics that are probably unhealthy.
Excellent.
No one likes to talk about politics. You're like, let's.
Wow. What are the three?
Religion, politics, and
sex. Yeah, right.
Sex they took off though.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh,
people do want to talk about that now.
So you guys are coming off a tough couple of weeks, crazy storms and floods, and the Climate Reality Project was and is something that you're a huge part of, and you've created a friendship and partnership with Al Gore. And I know when you started, there were so many naysayers still, and there still are tons of naysayers.
It's
but
less so.
It's kind of like, guys,
from 3 years ago.
It's not like I've got these esoteric statistics that said no is, Sandy and floods last week, and
Yeah, it's kind
the
of
glaciers are melting. It's not if they're melting.
Yeah. It's come home for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that 3 years ago, a lot of what we focused on was trying to get the press, really. That was our main audience, is get the press to understand what the science is.
Yeah.
Because the press at the time was always, you know, okay, here's what's happening, here's the science. Oh, and let's talk to this scientist to get the counterpoint. And it, you know, it represents, you know, 2% of the scientific opinion.
Well, I think
so it's overwhelming.
Trying to play the unbiased middle, and there really isn't an unbiased middle. It's
not in science, and so it made it seem like science was like, and people were working really hard to make it seem like, you know, some of the think tanks that were trying to make it feel like the science was unsettled. The science was has been very settled for a while.
Yeah.
And there's a new report out, like I think tomorrow, that's going to say the same thing, and we'll go a little bit further and say that, you know, it's almost entirely man-made. So it's good to see. To me, it's really good to see how people have shifted,
yeah,
and how really the press is much more responsible in their coverage.
I think it made change. I think what you and Al did made huge change. I think people noticed. That's all you really wanted. Make some decisions based on the reality.
Yeah, climate reality. But it's one of those things where we're gonna. A lot of the predictions are for more extreme weather, and that seems to be, you know, pretty much what we have experienced here,
right,
with fires and flooding. You're going to have longer periods of drought. You're going to have more floods, and the reason for that is because the atmosphere, as it warms, it holds more moisture, and so when it comes down, it's like pulling the plug on a bathtub that's more full,
right,
and it pulls moisture from you know, up to, I think, like 20,000 kilometers away.
Wow.
So it really sucks in once it starts to downpour, and that, you know, you can't assign any specific weather event to climate change, but what happens is with climate change, you're really loading the dice. So the odds have completely changed. What, right, you know, what would be a 100-year flood, and that's what they're calling this, a 100-year flood. We may find that that's more of a 50-year flood, right, or it may be more of a 25-year flood, and that's very costly for people because we don't have the infrastructure, right, to deal with those extreme changes in weather. You know, all our infrastructure has been designed for a pretty placid planet, and
right. The fringe was the fringe, and we, you know, when we deal with it, we'll deal with it.
But it was rarer,
right?
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I think that there is a, you know, right now, the next 24 hours of reality event, which is sort of, you know, the big event that Climate Reality does each year, is going to really dig into the cost of carbon. So you and I are paying a cost right now. So a lot of people in Boulder are paying a cost right now, you know, through not being insured and having to, you know, rebuild their homes.
Right.
That's a cost that maybe should be in part covered by the big carbon polluters, and it's been offset into the consumer's lap.
When is the next the reality project, or the reality?
When's it coming
event?
out?
Yeah, when is it?
It's going to be in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fearless. We sat 3 years ago. Fearless Cottage, and then Fearless Force. Is that still kind of the holder of all the ideas? And
I don't know. I mean, Fearless is sort of like the cottage became the Climate Reality. Okay. Right? They went into there.
Oh, okay.
And now there's an agency called, they went into there, and now there's an agency in there.
Okay.
Called Skoop. Have you heard of Skoop?
No.
I'm not in.
You mean in there,
in the cottage? The cottage has great mojo.
Things operating at a.
It's like a magic place. Like I'll leave and I'll go back, you know, and then I get to see all the Climate Reality people. Like, and it's like, okay, this is good. And then I, you know, leave for another, 6 months. And I came back, and now these guys from school are in there. And their idea is they do for every project they work on, they also build a school.
Wow. And that's what organization?
It's called School.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be super easy to remember.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
So it's funny, one of my questions that I X'd out after I wrote it was, so you're out of advertising, it doesn't mean you stop getting ideas. And then I went down the list of common and climate reality. So now I know what you do with the ideas. You know, are there other ideas, you know, that you get sometimes and say, boy.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
like I wish
I got nothing to do with this one.
Like I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that would be a really good idea, but I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Or
you find people
come
to tell
me.
Tell it to and say, you know, you've been looking for this thing. Why don't you do this?
I sometimes try to do that, but it's hard. People mostly are passionate about their own ideas.
That's true.
Yeah. And so it's difficult. Yeah. But the thing that the biggest problem for me is I can get excited about all sorts of ideas, and people will say, hey, I got this great idea. I want to meet you and talk about it. And I do, but often I'm like, but just so you know, there is no way I'm getting involved. Because
and they're like from the beginning too. You're like, I can't get involved in 98%
and they're like,
of
but
the
you're
things.
It's like right up your alley. You're gonna love it. You're gonna get excited about it. I'm like, that is exactly what's gonna happen, right? And I'm gonna start to think about it and riff on it, and you know, but I can't do it. I got too much going on, so I can't do it.
Anybody can vouch for that. You've got too much going on for a guy who kind of left the business.
I'm supposed to be retired.
Well, that was my next question: is how's the guitar going? Because you know,
not good, not good. That's a really good question because
first interview, I said, you know, what do you do? You know, I said guitar drums. You said guitar, and you pointed over there. Yeah, I had a guitar, and I said, how's it going? Working on it.
When I was working in advertising,
yeah.
I was playing guitar like a lot, and I mean, since I've left, no, nothing. Like I don't have time.
It's a loaded question. And then how about dirt biking?
I sort of got out of that. I wasn't severely injured. It was time to get out. So.
Yeah, I have some mandates against it. I do some crazy things, but they drew the line at motorcycles with me. My wife called my mom on me. That's when it gets bad. Yeah.
Well, I've got motorcycles. I've still got a couple trials bikes. Do you know what trials are?
No.
Yeah.
I was nodding my head though. I thought I did.
Yeah, trials bikes. Yeah. I have some of those.
Cool, I guess.
And
cool.
I like anything with two wheels, you know.
I imagine they had a motor and two
wheels.
I
go in the garage a lot. That's my wife and I basically are. What we think I do is I fart around in the garage all the time, and yet somehow I also do like Skoop and Made and all these other things. That's what it really feels like. Because most of my time I'm in the garage just like, you know, welding something.
Yeah, that was the other thing we talked about when we first got together. Not welding, but like you weren't the guy. You really weren't.
I'm not the guy that hooks them up. I need help hooking things up, and so I'm not the IT guy.
But you could rebuild a motor.
I can rebuild certain motors, but not all motors.
That's good enough, I think.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Skoop. You know, they're our host here today,
yeah.
which is very cool. I want to talk a little bit about Skoop. You want to throw us a bag into frame?
That seems like too much of a commercial, don't you think? Do you want to do it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
It feels too much.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah. Just get a picture where I go. Yeah. We used to do that.
Skoop.
That was a big commercial thing. It's like, can you get someone to catch the product without looking? That's always nice, right? As a finish.
How many takes did that take?
Usually takes many takes. But yeah, I can tell you a little bit about Skoop, and I met Greg Stroh, who had done Izzy, which was bought by Pepsi, and a friend of his, Dr. James Rouse, and we started riffing on different nutrition ideas, and James mixed up something that became our first product, and we all started using it, and we're like, this is awesome, I'm feeling really good, what's up, you know? And we made a bunch for friends, and people had similar experiences, and it was, remember that, I liked it so much, I bought the company. Do you remember that Norelco commercial?
Yeah, what was that?
I forget the dude's name, but it was like some dude who bought Norelco shavers,
and
then he put himself in the commercial. But I always think about Skoop a little bit like that, because it was sort of like, this stuff's so good, we should make a company. It's a little different, but...
Well, we were talking about things you're excited about, and you were like, you know, really, even back when you were still CPB, you could tell that you got jazzed when you could affect the product.
Yeah, yeah. So it's fun.
And you kind of helped build this one up.
Get to help formulate it, you know, change the tastes of it, and
that's cool.
Yeah, it's it's really fun. And then working on the packaging and the branding, you know, some of the stuff that's more familiar for me, but still, you know, I really enjoy it. And so the things that I'm kind of into, food, and specifically, I've been a bit of an advocate against GMOs. So, you know, no GMOs, made in America. We sell through social sellers, so it creates like tons of jobs.
Wow.
And so it feels, it's hard to beat.
Products that are aligned with your values.
It's really aligned. So it's fun. I think that's part of what makes it fun to work on.
Well, that was the conversation we had about why you originally exited, that products weren't aligned with your values anymore. So if you're able to do that, what do you miss about advertising? Or you don't because you're doing the stuff that you would be missing?
I probably miss some of the people, you know, to go into work and be surrounded by like 700 really cool, smart people.
Yeah.
You know,
there's an energy and a buzz around that.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, that feeling, you know. So definitely get that with Made. So my day is I'll pop over to Made, you know, and spend a little time.
Get your energy fill and
make
your
a couple
buzz.
Jokes, do some advising, some really high.
Yeah. So giving advice.
I'll give advice, even when they don't. Usually when they don't want it, and then I have to leave, right? Because they're like, okay, you should leave now.
But they all know you, which
they
do.
know.
You told me the story about, you know, you get in the elevator and they'd be all like, they would be
that
afraid
sucked.
to look at your eye. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're so big that people are that you don't know everybody.
Before, yeah.
That's kind of a bummer. So and then, you know, I'll pop over to Skoop and you know, work on whatever needs to be worked on, and I think Boulder.
It's all right here too. You can pop down the street.
It's also close. Yeah, it's all on my bike. So the Boulder is like, you know, king of the startups.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The interview before you showed up was Business Week, and they're like, "What is up with Boulder?"
Wow.
Because you know, there's so much venture capital money in town.
Huh.
There's so many startups. There's, you know, food specifically. It's like,
this
you
is
know,
new, or it's been that way for the last decade or so?
It's been that way for, I don't know about a decade, but it's been that way for a while. And, you know, my feeling is everyone comes here because they want the lifestyle.
Right.
But a big part of the lifestyle is sort of risk taking. You know, it's like skiing,
extreme
mountain bike. It's you know, rock climbing. And then when you take that kind of personality and you add business, what's most like jumping off a cliff on skis is basically starting something from scratch.
Right.
You know, so that I think that's why this is such just, you know, emotionally people want to get fired up, and you can't get as fired up about anything like you can a startup. It's just terrifying. No, I mean, every day is just crazy challenges, things that you haven't done before. Nothing has been done before, right?
Yeah.
So
it's not the Boulder that Mark and Mindy were in 1970, whatever that was. It's a new Boulder.
But I'm here, you know, I'm running a 1,000-person agency or whatever it was, and I'm looking at people who are doing startups in town, and I'm totally jealous.
Right, you're envying that.
Right?
Wow,
I'm like, I need to quit my job and get in with some of that, because that looks like fun. And I love small.
It's a great analogy, though.
I love when the agencies are small too. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of people who wind up here and they leave. They can't wait to get out of very safe situations to get into very risky ones.
Huh. Excellent. Then it's like Fred Flintstone getting out of.
I can't time it right. I'm trying to time it right.
I should be asking you a question and you should give the answer. All right, a couple little wrap-up questions. What do you hope for America? Kind of a big question.
For
America, and as you've got kids of an uncertain age, we won't mention.
Yeah.
A very ambiguous age. Eventually, we'll be out in the workforce. And what do you kind of hope for America in the next 5 or 10 years?
I'm pretty optimistic about America. I'm more optimistic than I was 3 years ago.
Really?
For sure. Yeah, yeah. And I don't know why. I was so concerned about so many things, I think, 3 years ago. I really was very, very, very worried. And I'm not sure if it's because I've thought enough about things that I've thought it through, or whether I just got fatigued with the worry and I couldn't worry anymore. I think the world is just, it's the change and the rate of change and what's happening.
I was going to say, if I had to say that the difference in you from now and it was 3 years ago that we got together, is you've actually been able to address some of the things that worried you and see change happen.
Yeah, I think I think you get to participate in some things, and in general, the world changes, and in general, humanity gets a little bit more priority, just like and makes progress. Humanity itself just keeps making
That's
progress.
optimistic, right there.
It's not like a line that's perfect. It's a bumpy line, but you can't. No matter what statistic you look at, humanity is making progress, and the average state of affairs for the average person on Earth, it's improving. It's the safest time ever to be alive. There's still poverty, there's still even slavery, but it's improving. And so
it doesn't feel hopeless. I think you can, if you really want to, you can make change.
You can almost predict when there'll be world peace. I mean, some of the
that's
changes.
Can I use that as a headline? That's.
I mean, I'd like to. There's a great book, The Better Angels of Our Nature.
Okay.
And that's a great read. And it's one of those things that makes you feel very positive, because it begins basically at the dawn of civilization,
right,
and maps violence and war, and even with to
what end? To
two world wars in our last century, your chance of there's never been a safer time, and there's never been a time where you've had more freedoms, and never been a time where you've enjoyed more quality of life by 1,000-fold.
Right.
So I haven't thought about when war is usually thought of as armed conflict between 1,000, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually think that if you took his work and maybe I think you could figure out essentially when war will end, and it will.
That's optimistic. I like that.
Yeah, we might have a nuclear war in between now and then. Oh. No, I mean but it's hard to say that it's not going to come to an end. So and the other thing that's just cool, this is just what's cool.
Okay, because we all want to know what's cool.
What's cool?
That's why we tune in.
What's cool is everybody can be involved in what's happening now. Like, there's the
real time.
The democratization of media, right? And allowing like anybody who's got a voice and is willing to put it forward to, get it someplace and get it seen and get it heard.
We've seen governments overthrown from social media.
It's super powerful. But it was, I think the last time we talked, we had just tipped to the point where more media was peer-to-peer than from a media outlet. Did we talk about that last time?
No, I think you and I stayed in touch right after, and Occupy Wall Street had happened.
Because so originally media is completely controlled by the emperor, then completely controlled by the church, then completely controlled by the state, and then the corporations. But the majority of media that people consume now is peer-to-peer. No one getting in between you and information, or you and what you want to talk about.
Well, we've all got a little ENG kit in our pocket that, sound, video, send it. Just,
It's kind of chaotic because there's not any agenda. But the only common agenda is humanity itself. It's that march of like shared humanity.
Right.
And that's why I think that it's it's a time where people, if they choose to, they can really feel positive about what's coming.
Excellent.
Other than nuclear war.
Right. And try not to.
And dirty
even if you
bombs.
know, don't.
Do you want to end with that?
Even if you know, don't tell me when that one's happening. We'll end with, you know, last time we ended, you said, and we're sitting on the porch of the Fearless Cottage, and you said, I'm more suited for slow company than fast company. You're still comfortable in slow company? You want to be
I like slow company. Like now there's slow, you know, there's slow food.
Right.
Right. There's the slow money movement, which is, you know, a guy locally started slow money, which is really cool. Yeah, I don't think I'm fast co.
Yeah, I think you're involved plenty for a guy who's retired.
I just the velocity of things is well, we could talk about the velocity of money being a problem. I can always come back to a problem if you want to get like. You know what's happening with money and how fast it's being traded and how long an average trade is held, and
that's probably over the, we can talk about that over drinks, probably over the head of my viewers. But I'd like to hear about it.
All right, we can talk
about it. My editor's like, fuck, you shot how many minutes? We got good 6-7 minutes.
There's only 3 minutes of good stuff, though.
Well, let's wrap up. You know, you've been on my show a couple times, and the Buzz Round, we've done that. This is your third time. So what we're doing now is games of skill and physical, you know,
we wrestle.
So actually, it's the thumb wrestle. So we're going to thumb wrestle, best of 3, and whoever wins buys the other dinner.
All right, that's fine. I'll do that.
Bring that.
The problem with
that'd be perfect.
The problem with thumb wrestling.
One of those stools.
Don't you feel like people cheat? So you've got a way to keep yourself from cheating? I mean, I won't cheat, but
I'll probably cheat. I don't know.
He's got a grip like a vice. I'm just saying right now.
So
like
it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's cold.
I declare a thumb war. All right. So one.
Wait a minute.
You go the opposite side.
Let's just
like tapping the gloves.
Yeah, you know, like a little.
All right. Clean fight with no cursing and no kicking in the balls.
I just want to pet your thumb. Do you ever do that?
No. Whoa! All right, we'll give you the 1. All right, 1-0. Let's do it.
I got in your head.
1, 2. You got to do the thing.
All right, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Challenge your thumb war. That's it. And then you get the decoy, and you just.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I got
put it in there.
All right. It's been great.
Nice work. Sorry
so,
about the first one.
But you got to come to New York for me to buy it. How's that?
I'll do that.
All right.
I'll do that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Buzzbubble out. See you next time. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
That was fun.
Petting my thumb. I was just like...
That hasn't happened before.
No, that is certainly a first on the show.